having no gift of strategy or arms, no secret weapon and no wall defense, I shall become a citizen of love. That little nation with the blood-stained sod, where even the slain have power, the only country that sends forth an ambassador to God. Renouncing self and crying out to evil to end its wars. I seek a land that lies all unprotected like a sleeping child. Nor is my journey reckless and unwise. Who doubts that love has an effective weapon may meet with a surprise. Having no gift of strategy or arms, no secret weapon and no bold defense, I shall become a citizen of love. I shall become a citizen of love.
You have been enjoying the music of Steve Kinzie of the Tonasket Church of the Brethren, which is way up north, near the U.S.-Canadian border of central Washington. Hello, I'm Brent Carlson. Welcome to Brethren Voices. We are in our 11th year producing Brethren Voices. We film brethren living out their faith in 15 different states and 6 countries. This program marks our first time in the state of Washington as the Pacific Northwest District of the Church of the Brethren celebrates its spring event. Spring comes early in much of the Northwest. In some parts, we see the early camellias blooming around Christmas time. In the latter part of January, we see the primroses and then the daphne and crocus. Not far behind are the daffodils and tulips. It's a beautiful time of the year lasting 4 to 5 months. For the Brethren Spring event, it's a time of celebrating with stories, music, workshops, worship, and getting together with friends. Wendy McFadden, publisher of the Messenger magazine, was a special guest at this year's event. We'll be meeting her, but first we'd like to introduce Mont Chris Hubbard, one of the Northwest's finest pianists from the Portland area. He's a very gifted composer and songwriter whose forte is spontaneous improvisation. The Church of the Brethren congregations of the Pacific Northwest are scattered over Oregon and Washington. From Portland, the nearest congregation is about 2 hours' drive by car. So having Wendy McFadden as a special guest of the district was quite a privilege. We were able to meet with Wendy on a beautiful day in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, I met the Church of the Brethren at Juniata College. I had never heard of the Brethren before choosing to go to Juniata.
But you chose the Brethren College?
I did, yeah.
Not knowing it was Brethren?
Right, yeah.
Because it
just sounded good. It was a little more than 3 hours from my home in Maryland, and so it was the right distance away, and it was
far enough, but not too far.
Exactly, yeah. Actually, what happened was I went to the guidance counselor at my high school and said I was trying to decide where to apply. And she said, yesterday somebody came from this place, and she handed me a brochure. And then that was the end of it. She didn't talk about anything else. She just handed me this brochure. And I went home and I read it, and I thought it sounded good, so I applied, and I was accepted, and I went. I never visited.
Never visit?
Yeah, in those days, there was not
a divine arrangement. It's like God said, I want you.
Maybe. So I joined a club there called the Deputation Club, which was one where students go out and lead Sunday morning services in any congregation that wants it. And so I was in a lot of Brethren congregations, mostly in Pennsylvania, during my 4 years. I had lots of experience that way, leading worship and
But you knew you were going to Brethren.
Yeah, by then
churches.
I did. Yes. By then I knew many of the members of the Deputation Club were Brethren, not all of them, but most of the places that we visited were Brethren, because that's where the information was circulated. So anyway, I was in a lot of Brethren schools, Brethren congregations, and I gained this sense of the Brethren just from those little visits of a people who live out all week long what they say they believe on Sunday. And I can't really articulate how I got that sense that was different from other churches, because I clearly wasn't in those churches on Monday, but I still got this feeling of a deep commitment to living out faith. And that's really what drew me. And I actually asked for more information about the Brethren, and I got some brochures from Brethren Press, never knowing that in the future I would have some involvement in that. But so I read up about the Brethren. I even asked some of my friends who were Brethren, my new friends, how the Brethren were different from the Presbyterians, and most of them couldn't say. Because you grow up in it, you don't know how to articulate the difference.
That's what actually we're finding it out. Did you grow up Presbyterian?
Yes, yeah. So I was interested in how are those two traditions different, and I think I learned that from brochures, or at least from a few conversations. But then I joined Brethren Volunteer Service because I learned about BVS while I was at Juniata.
But this was after you graduated. And you graduated, what did you graduate in?
When?
What?
Oh, communications.
Okay.
So when I was going into BVS, I was looking for a position that used those skills, and I ended up at Messenger magazine.
As a volunteer?
Yeah.
In
and
Nelson.
and then just a few weeks later, there had been a transition just before I arrived, so a few weeks later I was asked to be the managing editor. So
a few weeks?
Yeah, so I didn't really finish my year of volunteer service. I was hired, and I've been there ever since. Anyway, I worked there at Messenger for 10 years before being asked to become publisher of Brethren Press. And then a few years after that, the communication team and the publishing house were merged, and so that's what I supervise now, is those two parts of the organization. And really, I do think that people who choose to become Brethren consider what it is differently than people who were born and raised in it, who take it for granted, maybe. That doesn't mean that people who are born and bred Brethren can't articulate their faith, but if you have to decide, then you're going to think through some kind of a process. I think what's important for Brethren is to be able to tell their story. I think traditionally, the humble Brethren have not needed to do that.
It wouldn't be Brethren.
It wouldn't be Brethren to talk about it. And so we have to be coached into speaking humbly about what we believe in and how we live that out. Our words have our lives have spoken for our beliefs, and that carries us a certain distance. But sometimes we need words also to tell the rest of the story. So Messenger is, it's really important, I think. It symbolizes something about who the Brethren are, but also the readers are really loyal. They're people who care a lot about the church. And we're making a change right now in adding an online version of the magazine. And it's almost live. Any day now we'll be doing that. And it will have some of the same content as the print version, and it will also have some content that's not in the print version. There are some people who want to read a print magazine, but there are other people who really want to read it along with everything else that they're getting online. So we need articles that people can share, which they can't do as well from a print edition or the digital edition. We need ones that people can handle separately and share on their Facebook news feeds, for example.
Now, what's the difference between online and digital?
Well, the digital edition, which we launched a couple of years ago.
Because I get that one.
Yeah, so you know what that is. It's a replica, really, of the print edition, with the addition of some online content like links to slideshows or videos, that sort of thing. So it's sort of an enhanced PDF. And that's really great for people who need to see it on the go, or maybe they live in another country and it takes too long for the print to get to them. But it's not really the way people read online content.
Mostly young people.
Yeah, we need something that's on a website. So we felt that what's most essential about the magazine is not what format it's in, it's that it's Messenger, the magazine of the Church of the Brethren. And whether it someday is only online, we want it to still be there. We want to keep the print going as long as we can, and we still can. We are intending to keep that going indefinitely.
Technology changes are happening everywhere, and it is having a real effect on the print media. We asked Wendy about the latest developments in the Messenger magazine, which is the historic publication for the Church of the Brethren.
And a new thing that we're doing is we have a group of contributing editors that we've just collected, and they range from Pennsylvania to California, and they represent 6 decades in age 21 to 80. And these people are going to be writing occasionally for the magazine and helping us reach into communities that we might not otherwise be as connected with. So we're broadening the reach, and that's probably a really important way that we're extending Messenger.
Are they all brethren?
Yes, yes. And they're all people who have some level of writing and editing experience. Most of them are known as writers and editors in addition to whatever they do, some less so, but they all have written for either Messenger or Brethren Press already.
One of the latest publications of Brethren Press is this terrific children's book, The Seagoing Cowboy, which has just been released. The author is Peggy Reiff Miller. She has been a guest on Brethren Voices. The Seagoing Cowboy is illustrated wonderfully by Claire Ewart. It's the incredible true story of the heroic work done to restore a sustainable livelihood to the survivors of World War II, following the destruction of Europe. It's the story of farm boys who were called Seagoing Cowboys because they accompanied herds of cattle and horses on ships to Europe to help replenish livestock that had been destroyed by war. Wendy shared about the making of this fine book.
We have a new book coming out this month called The Seagoing Cowboy. That's been pretty exciting for us.
That's for children.
It's for children. Yeah. And we don't do children's books
ages.
very often, but we do them once in a while when it's a book that only Brethren Press could really do. Nobody else should be the ones publishing the book, The Seagoing Cowboy. Peggy Reiff Miller is the writer. She's pretty much the world expert on seagoing cowboys. She's made that her passion. And we have beautiful illustrations by an illustrator in Fort Wayne named Claire Ewart. We sent a notice out recently to Seagoing Cowboys, the whole list of people that Peggy has access to, and we've been getting calls from them ordering the book. It's been a lot of fun for our customer service people because these Seagoing Cowboys, who are all older And
getting older.
they tell their stories on the phone when they place their order. So that's pretty exciting, as it means that it's a really meaningful book that's telling some part of the Brethren's story that we need to hear.
The illustrations are truly special. And reading the story and looking at the pictures brought tears to my eyes as I thought of the millions that were affected by World War II and the millions who lost their lives, both combatants and civilians. Cowboys, really farm boys, and the Church of the Brethren helping people restore their lives and their future and hope. I know you're going to enjoy this book. The book can be ordered from brethrenpress.com or from seagoingcowboys.com, where you can also see our Brethren Voices program on Seagoing Cowboys. Check it out. The sharing of stories was the focus of the spring event. Mark Ray of the Covington Church of the Brethren in Washington shared this story about a small congregation with a big goal.
I am not too sure that our story as brethren contains a lot of heroic moments, the stuff of epic storytelling, but of hard work and deep wrestling instead. We have wrestled with Scripture, with culture, with each other, and we have the limp to prove it. I'd like to tell you one of those wrestling stories, an unknown but true story of a Brethren church a long way from here, but with this caveat. Not all stories resolve or end like we'd prefer, but they are our stories nonetheless. And this particular story is about a little church with a long history, a tumultuous history with tenuous relationships and decades of struggle. Now, the little church with a long history sat atop a hill overlooking a beautiful green valley surrounded by two ridges of mountains. And oh, how the wind blew there. It would howl and howl, so much so that it was possible for a chicken to lay the same egg 3 times in one day. But it wasn't always the wind that howled the most. One day, a handful of people decided they knew just what to do to repair the relationship problems in the church. They needed a picnic shelter. Calvary Church had one, and New Hope Church, the Baptists and the Methodists did too. A picnic shelter would surely be the thing to bring them all together again. As polity goes, a simple majority at council was all that was needed to make anything the official business of the church. So they organized their campaign and they spread the word. The church board didn't buy it. That is, until someone coughed up $3,000 and convinced them they wouldn't need much more to build a picnic shelter. So that seed money was a little bit too tempting to pass up. Of the 100+ members of this little church with a long history, only 25 showed up to council to decide the business of the church. The 25 heard an impassioned speech from a carefully selected spokesman, which at first fell flat on cynical ears, that is, until the money was mentioned and a few minds were changed. Enough minds to win a clear 52% majority of the 25 in attendance. Now, you math-smart folks know that's 13 who said they wanted a picnic shelter. Not 13 out of 25, but 13 out of 100. And even though they had won with procedure, they failed to win the hearts of this little church with a long history. And while it became quickly apparent no one else in the church was enthusiastic about a picnic shelter, the 13 marched on in triumphal procession with the official council mandate in their back pockets and fellowship as their rallying cry. Having failed to estimate the cost of completion, it soon became evident that only $21,000 more was now needed for this project, which would save us all. As the donations trickled in at a snail's pace, the patience of the 13 grew thin and their tactics grew darker. They began demanding support from the little church with a long history and employing the tactics of guilt and manipulation to coerce more and more money from the people to build their temple of togetherness. Fists were pounded, things were said, sides were taken, threats were made, and when a committee member suddenly died, the cause was now carried on in his name and in his honor. So the cause now took on a new sense of importance, built on the memory of those who came before. Well, as months gave way to years, the little church with a long history had their fill of spaghetti suppers and chicken barbecues, and I mean their fill. They reached their goal finally after many, many years, and they built their shrine of solidarity. But not everyone from the little church with a long history rejoiced. The true cost had not been counted. Sure, procedure and polity had won the day, but the politics of personal agenda had taken its toll on the little church with a long history. This cathedral of community, this shrine of solidarity, this temple of togetherness, this picnic shelter, ironically built to build fellowship, had just the opposite effect because the pursuit of personal agenda was in competition with the koinonia of Christ. You see, sticks and rocks, polity and procedure, even when driven by powerful personalities, can't build what love can. Their picnic shelter now stands in a beautiful little spot overlooking a valley at the edge of the cemetery of the little church with a long history. And all 60 people who now call the church home have plenty of elbow room as they gather once or twice a year under the 2x4s and shingles to enjoy each other's company, to the glory of God, of course.
This is Brent Carlson wishing you peace.